Hi and welcome to part 1 of my Colombia travel series. With this series I'm trying to inform you the best I can and give you all the knowledge I gained while traveling through Colombia for 1 month in July 2024. The whole series is going to consist of about 9 parts, each part focusing on a different aspect of traveling through Colombia. First part itinerary and which destinations to visit, then all about money, highlights of Colombia, getting around, so transportation, accommodation recommendations if you need to know Spanish to travel the country, the weather in Colombia, safety, here I'll also include 2 scary stories that we actually experienced while traveling, and lastly the prices. So if you plan on coming to the country, I recommend watching all the videos. Don't worry, I tried to keep them short at like 5-10 minutes each. This one might be a bit longer. And if you're only interested in a particular topic, feel free to jump around and watch the specific video that you need. I tried to keep everything organized with timestamps and links in the description, but if I haven't released a video yet, there won't be a link. And in that case, feel free to subscribe and stay updated. Now that this is out of the way, let's start with part 1. Alright, so we stayed in Colombia for 28 nights and our itinerary looked something like this. Started in Bogota with 2 nights, took the bus to the Tatacoa Desert, stayed there for 2 nights well. Then we went back to Bogota for just 1 night, flew to the Amazon the next day and stayed there for 3 nights, flew back to Bogota once more and again 1 night. Then we went to Salento for 2 nights, we went to Medellin for 2 nights, then flew to Bahia Solano on the Pacific coast and stayed there for 5 nights. Actually, you're not going to stay in Bahia Solano but in the town of El Valle. And yeah, afterwards we flew back to Medellin and the same day flew to Cartagena, stayed there for 2 nights, took the boat to Isla Grande, which is the biggest island in the Rosario Islands, and we stayed there for 5 nights and then we went back to Cartagena, slept 1 last night and flew back home. Next, let's look at each destination in more detail. First up, Bogota. Bogota is the capital city of Colombia and sits at whopping 2,600 meters above the sea level. Because of this, it can get rather cold and water jacket most of the time, and we weren't prepared for that, to be honest, so definitely something to keep in mind. The temperatures ranged around from, let's say, 10 to 15 degrees Celsius, and it rained one day out of 4 days. For activities, you can walk through the center of Candelaria, you can climb Monserrate, you can visit the Gold Museum and Puerto Museum. Puerto was a famous artist in Colombia, and there's also the Salt Cathedral, which is 1 day trip away, and I kind of wish we had done that but didn't. There's a lot of cool street art, but apart from that the buildings aren't really that nice, and also there aren't many tourists in Bogota, which is a plus for me, but overall I'd rate Bogota only a 4 out of 10, to be honest. Next up, the Tatacoa Desert. The desert is located in the south of Bogota and around 10 hours away by bus. You first take a bus to Neiva, from there you take another jeep to Via Vieja. You can book the bus to Neiva online with redbus.com and it costs us around 14 euros or $15 per person. And once you arrive at terminal in Neiva, ask around for the jeep to Via Vieja and they will guide you to the ticket booth where you can buy the ticket. The dominating company in the area is called Comotor, and if you look for the Comotor ticket booth, you're gonna find it pretty quickly. The ride into the desert is kind of rough, so be prepared for that, but it's also a lot of fun. It's just not gonna be a chill bus. Jeep is gonna cost you around 5 or so, 20,000 pesos. In the village, you're gonna be dropped off at the main square, and from there you can just walk to the accommodation because the village isn't very big and you don't need the tuk-tuk. But you can't get into the desert without a tuk-tuk. It's rather far, it's like 40 minutes by tuk-tuk. So yeah, you can't walk there. I can't remember how much they charged exactly, but I believe it was like 60,000 pesos, so 15 euros in total for like 5 hours of tour. There's an observatory that where you can look at stars, but it really depends on the weather conditions. So if there's full moon, you're not gonna see as many stars. Also, if it's gonna be cloudy, there aren't going to be that many stars. So our stargazing suffered under the weather conditions. Also be aware that the sun sets around 5 or 6 p.m. in Colombia, and you're not allowed to go into the desert if it gets too dark because you might get lost. And because of that, I'd recommend going to the desert early in the morning or in the early afternoon, but keep in mind that in the afternoon it can get quite hot. Probably best to go in. So we got to the village and stargazing the first day, and then the next day in the morning took a tuk-tuk to the red and the gray part of the desert. The red one is the famous one and the gray one is a bit smaller and honestly also less impressive, but they do have the pool, which you can see on pictures, but you also have to pay for that. Honestly, the pool isn't as cool reality as it is on social media. Anyway, for walking around the red part of the desert, I'd recommend anything between an hour to an hour and a half maybe, and for the gray part maybe like 40 minutes, even a bit less. You can stay either in the desert or in the village. If you stay in the desert, I assume that your options getting food are going to be limited because there aren't going to be restaurants around, but also you get to experience the night sky better. We stayed in the village and it was fine, honestly, and if you opt for that, you also have better options regarding where to eat, but you're going to need a tuk-tuk. Apart from the desert, there isn't a lot going on in the village, so you can fill probably a couple of hours or maybe a day with activities, but you might get bored rather quickly, and therefore I'd rate the place 6 or maybe 6.5 out of 10. Also, there is a better option for the bus to get to Via Vieja, where you don't have to go to Neiva and then drive back, but you get off the bus a bit earlier, but I couldn't really figure it out where exactly you need to get off, and the more popular route is going first in neighbor. Next, the Amazon. This was definitely a highlight of my trip, and to get there you gotta fly from Bogota to Leticia. The flights were rather expensive at around 120 euros away, and when you arrive you'll also have to pay an entrance fee of around 80,000 pesos, around, I don't know, 20 euros, and then you can either walk into the city or take a taxi. We took a taxi because it was only 10,000 pesos, and we arrived in the evening, so we only spent one night in Leticia, and the next morning we took a boat to Puerto Nariño. The boat leaves here and at these hours, and it takes about 2 hours, cost 40,000 pesos per person to get from Leticia to Puerto Nariño. Yeah, Leticia is actually quite a busy city with 70,000 citizens and a lot of motorcycles, and I really wouldn't recommend staying in Leticia, but rather go to Puerto Nariño. The town is much calmer and prettier, and we did all of our tours there. They were great because they really took their time for the tour and didn't rush it, so they would say it would take like 6 hours, and it was really 6 or maybe even longer, and not just 4 hours and so. So I really appreciated that. It was also rather cheap, I would say, and much cheaper than you book your tour online. So we did it like that. We looked up accommodation on booking.com, and then we asked them, yo, can you organize tours for us? And they sent us offers of which tours available, and then we just picked out which tours we want to do, and overall this was a lot cheaper than taking a pre-made package. Specifically, we did a lake tour where we did some piranha fishing, a night walk to see some scary insects, a tour to spot some sloths on the Peruvian side of the Amazon, and one evening tour. I'd say that the best tours were probably the Cayman tour. Piranha fishing was also a lot of fun, but you don't necessarily need a tour for that. You can just do that in the river. Salento and the Cocorra Valley. After the Amazon, we flew back to Bogota and took the bus to Armenia, which cost like 13 euros or 40 US dollars. And from there, we took a smaller bus to Salento. It is a bit confusing how to get to the smaller bus, but ask around and people will be happy to help. Basically, it's just on the other side of the bus terminal, so you're gonna arrive one side from Bogota to Armenia, and then you have to walk across the whole station to get to the other bus. But really, just ask around. There's even a tourist information booth where you can ask person there. They probably are going to have a pre-made message on their phone, which they are just going to show you, and from there you're gonna find it, and people will recognize that you want to go to Salento anyway. They'll point you in direction. You're gonna find it. It's not that cool. The whole journey took around 8 hours. Salento was really the first destination trip with a lot of tourists, and honestly it was a lot of fun. There are shops and the restaurants, and houses look so cute, and I wish we stayed longer, but we didn't. Anyway, to get to the Cocorra Valley then, you gotta take a jeep, and unfortunately I forgot the exact location, but there is an information center at the main square, and if you go there, just as with the information center in the Armenia bus terminal, there is going to be another person standing there, pre-made message that is going to tell you where to go. Also, chances are that other tourists are looking for the same spot, so just follow the crowd and you're gonna find. Once you get to the valley, you can either opt for the private viewpoints, which are a bit more expensive, or hike up the mountain next to it for a more challenging. The mountain hike is gonna take around 5 hours, and it's what we did, but actually it's really rather challenging, so come prepared. We didn't bring enough food and water, and this was a mistake. The long hike is a bit cheaper than the viewpoint, and it's less crowded, but as I said, it's also more challenging, so whichever you want to do. Anyway, we had a great time and got some good views, even though top of the mountain was super cloudy and actually we couldn't see anything from up there, but overall I'd rate the place 8 or maybe 9 out of 10. Medellin. From Salento there's a direct bus to Medellin, about 6 hours. Book it in advance on Red Bus, again, otherwise the bus might full, which was the case when we got to the bus. So we had our tickets but others didn't, and they didn't get a ticket there. In Medellin, the most touristy and arguably most fun district is El Poblado, which is also the richest district of the. There are great restaurants and bars, and you can walk around feeling rather safe. A must-see in Medellin, in my opinion, is Comuna 13, where you can take a free walking tour, just stroll around, and it used to be one of the most dangerous areas in the world, but today it's actually rather safe for tourists and very artsy. But it's still controlled by gangs, and people living there have to pay money to be allowed to work in the area. Fortunately for us tourists, gangs make their money with us, so they keep the area safe. Apart from that, you can also go to Park Avi, which is a popular destination for locals from what I've heard, or you can go to Guatape, which you probably have heard of already, interested in Colombia. Both are day trips, and we didn't do either one of them, and I regret that, but still Medellin gets all it added. Bahia, Solano on the Pacific coast. This was my absolute highlight of trip. Get to the Pacific coast, can either take a bus or a boat for a combined 36 hours from Medellin, or you can take a flight which will only take 1 hour and cost about the same. The downside of the flight is that if it's rainy, if the plane can't land or take off, but honestly it's fine and it's not even more expensive. So yeah, we went for the flight and got there without any issues. If you fly to Bahia Solano, you are most likely going to end up on beach Almejal, which is actually located in the town of El Valle. So from the airport you have to take a tuk-tuk to your accommodation accommodation because it is not within walking distance. The area is very remote and the beach is rather untouched apart from a few hostels that can be found. Our hostel was, I would say, one of the hotspots where locals would come to play beach volleyball every day in the evening. And apart from the laid-back atmosphere, the main highlight of the Pacific coast is definitely whale watching. And it's not just the boring type of whale watching where you take a boat, then you hope to see one whale in 2 hours. It's more like you can just relax on the beach, look at the sea, and you are going to see whales jump out of the water every couple of minutes if you come to the right. So we came in July, it was May. If you choose to take a boat and do a tour, maybe combine it with a tour to Itinerary, which are 2 waterfalls, and you have to do a little bit of canyoning to go there, but it's really a lot of fun. On the way there, you're also going whales, and it's a great experience. Also, if you do the tour, chances are that you'll see several whales jump out of the water, one after the other as close 30 meters away boat. It's so cool. Another cool thing that we did, fishing. This was organized privately. I need to know some Spanish to do this. We didn't know Spanish, but we were lucky that we met a guy who also wanted to do it, and he knew Spanish. And with that, we were able to organize it. It did cost us like $60, but it was definitely worth. We caught several tunas, ate a few of them just an hour later on an island. I'm pretty sure this is the best fish I've ever eaten my whole life. And in the evening, we grilled another one, fed the whole hostel with it. Yeah, would have stayed even long. 10 out of 10 for the episode. Lastly, we went to Cartagena and also Isla Grande, and I'll just summarize the last 2 spots in one go. Cartagena is by far the most touristy place and also the most expensive one. The old town is very pretty, but it's small and you'll be done exploring in a couple of hours, and there isn't much else to do, and it's rather hot, so we got bored rather quick. For cheap lunch, I recommend Espiritu Santo. Trust me, try it out. It's cheap and easy food, but it's very good. Isla Grande was similar. It has pretty good but not amazing snorkeling, and you're kind of isolated island. The local town isn't a place where you would stroll around, as it is just a random collection of houses, and there are no real shops. So you'll spend most of the time in your hotel, and I would say it requires a bit more than just a backpacker's budget to have a good time on the island. Also, the beaches are all private, and there's one public beach, but it's pretty crowded and with a lot of boats in it, so not a great place. And overall, I'd rate Cartagena solid 7 out of 10 because it is nevertheless a beautiful city, and Isla Grande only gets 4 out of 10. Really wasn't suitable for me. To summarize must-dos and what to skip, if you ask me what to do and what to skip, I'd probably say skip Bogota and the Tatacoa Desert. Bogota, as it's just not, there isn't that much to do there, and the Tatacoa Desert because it takes so long to get. But I would definitely recommend the Pacific coast, provided that you visit during whale season, and depending on your budget, I think Cartagena and the islands can be great, but as someone traveling on a low budget, I wouldn't recommend the island. Regarding the Amazon, I would totally recommend going. However, the Colombian Amazon known not as exciting as the one in Brazil or Peru, so if you visit other countries in South America and have the opportunity to go to the Amazon there, then you might want to skip the Amazon. Things we didn't do. This is just a compilation of destinations we didn't visit, but heard some stories about. Let's start off with Cali. Cali is known for dancing, and people told me it's only worth visiting if you care about dancing. So some people love cities, others hate it, and it's also supposed to be one of the more dangerous areas in the country. So if you are keen on learning how to dance, go. If not, then it might be worth Minca. I've only heard good things about Minca, but I think it's a bit more of a party destination. I haven't been there though, so I might be wrong about Palomino. Basically same as with Minca. Heard only good things, but again probably more of a party destination. Palomino also has some rafting, but I read that it got worse over the years. Barranquilla. Barranquilla has the 2nd largest carnival in South America and probably in the world. During carnival season, I reckon it's amazing. Other than that, I've heard that there's nothing to see or do in the city and really not worth going, and even a local that worked in a shop in Cartagena told so. La Guajira Desert. I heard that it's rather cool and you can do sandboarding or walk on sand dunes that are literally right next to the sea. The Lost City trek. A rather expensive trek, and one guy told me that the guide was drunk the whole day and wouldn't really answer their questions properly. And personally, I don't think it's worth going, also because it's so expensive, but I've also heard from one other person that they really liked it, so again, I don't know. Tyrona National Park. Generally, I've heard it's a cool experience, also staying with the native group in the park, but there are definitely a lot of tourists and it's not gonna be as pretty as it is on Google Maps. So if you Google Tyrona National Park, you're gonna see the iconic white beach with no people around. Yeah, it's not going to be like that. So be aware of that. Apart from that, might be really cool. We didn't go. Again, do your own research. Rincon del Mar. I've heard that it's a relaxed village in the west of Cartagena, few hours away by bus, and I reckon it to be a better beach experience than Cartagena and Isla Grande, but again, probably a bit more on the expensive side. This was it. The video got way longer than I intended to, but I wanted to give you a proper overview of all the destinations visited. Generally, we booked the flights using Google Flights and then the website of the airline, and we booked the buses mostly using Redbus. For accommodation, we used. If you want to know more, leave a comment or watch one of my other videos that you can find in the description, and see you in the next video.